Hello, everyone. Hi. You all having a great Comic-Con? Nice one. Fantastic, fantastic. Well, thank you for coming along. It's a massive pleasure for us to be here and for us to have our sea of friends here. Huh? It's Sea of Thieves, a new kind of multiplayer experience. And my name is Peter Hens, also known as Yoho Hens. Here we are. Aha. Gnarly, yes. We also have our design director, Mike the Mutinous Chapman. And Joe, 3 sheets neat. Quite possibly the most murderous looking pirate I've ever seen in my life. And and Shelley Pressgang Preston. So there's just one thing we want to do before we kind of get the show on the road. We were hoping that we could take a little photo of the crowd. So if you could all go full pirate for us, and we're just going to take a little bit of a snap that we'll share on social media. Come on, let's do it.
Come on, let's do it.
Yeah!
Very good. Awesome. Oh, big round of applause, everyone.
You guys are awesome. Awesome. Thank you very much. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to my esteemed colleague,
Thank you.
Mike the Mutinous.
Thank you.
There you are, sir.
Thank you, Pete. Thank you, everyone.
John Oliver.
John Oliver, yeah, that's me. Thank you, Comic-Con. Thanks for having us. So, just to begin, if you didn't know, what is Sea of Thieves? Well, Sea of Thieves is a shared world adventure game where you and your friends have the freedom to live the pirate life, playing how you want to play, whether that's adventuring, exploring, completing quests, encountering fantastical creatures in the world, and of course, encountering other real players out there on the waves. Ultimately, everyone in Sea of Thieves will be progressing towards becoming a pirate legend. And along the way on that journey, they will have memorable adventures, and no 2 sessions are ever going to play the same. So just to open up, here's Sea of Thieves in a nutshell. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So our goal is to create a new kind of multiplayer experience, and one that can change perceptions of what multiplayer can really be. We firmly believe in the untapped potential and the power of multiplayer to bring players together. That's better, you can hear me now, right? Creating welcoming communities and new and fresh experiences. It's fair to say, however, that there are varying perceptions of multiplayer as it currently stands, and I think this is entirely fair. And for a great deal of players, some of this is quite off-putting. So if we think about some of the perceptions of multiplayer that are out there today, there's the perception that it's just about pure competition, that it's just about pure mastery of mechanics, that it's just about player skill, that it's only about your skill that you bring to the game being the deciding factor of who wins and who loses. But multiplayer can be so much more than that. There's the perception that there's too much toxic behaviour. It's inevitable in any kind of community that there'll always be a small group of players who want to take the fun away from other people. It's important that we give players the power to deal with those kind of situations, and also build a community that's welcoming, that stands for what's right in that kind of game community. There's the perception that there's limitations around playstyle, and it relates to the first point where ultimately it's always going to be about competition, and that once I'm locked into a playstyle, I can't really move. It's just about battling the environment, or it's just about battling other players. We want to create a game where it can support multiple player motivations and multiple playstyles. And last, and I think this is a very important one, and I'm sure if you've played a lot of games, you've experienced this as well, the perception that you get left behind, that you need to put in that same amount of time investment as your friends to be able to keep up with them. That if you say, we need to play together every Tuesday night to be able to stay at the same level, otherwise we're going to fall behind and I can't really play with you anymore. That is such an alien concept. That puts barriers in place from friends to be able to play together, and that's not what Sea of Thieves is about. We believe in the magic of multiplayer, and that promise that if you played games years ago, that idea of getting lost in this world with your friends, just being able to go on these epic adventures, multiplayer promises so much, and there's so much untapped potential. Ultimately, we have faith in gamers, but we know this starts with our game design approach. It starts with a fundamental game design, that we look at this with fresh eyes and we design it from the ground up to make the most of this multiplayer experience. Have to call this one out first. I think everyone's aware of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, the reading books like Treasure Island, 80s classics like The Goonies. Big fans. And, of course, if you're old enough, the humour, the tone and the character of Monkey Island. And I think all those things encapsulate that fantasy of being out there and being a pirate. But I think it's really important for Sea of Thieves because so many people will come and play this game and they've already got an idea in their heads of what it's like to be a pirate in this fantasy world. They've already got an idea of what it means to crew up with friends and be on a ship together, out there on the open waves, going in hunt of epic lost treasure and exploring these islands. Everyone already comes to Sea of Thieves with an idea of what pirates do. That allows us to meet players halfway, where we don't need to over-explain the purpose of what you're doing in this world, because you already come with that ready-made knowledge. Co-op is naturally at the very heart of Sea of Thieves. Whether it's the design of the ship, the design of the quest, the design of the tools that you have, co-op is at the absolute heart of our decision-making process. And it wasn't just around forcing players into these co-op situations. It was about building natural benefits of having other people around. It's not just like some games out there where having more people around you is just extra firepower, or it's just having more ability to take down bosses. In our game, having people around you means there's more soft skills. It's having an extra pair of eyes, an extra pair of ears, having someone in the crow's nest who can spot ships from a distance, someone who's been an explorer in the world and has knowledge of the island, someone that can share that with the crew. All of that comes to the fore in a game like Sea of Thieves, where ultimately the communication between the crew is what makes the difference. It's not about someone's reaction times or the raw skill. It's about how they work together as a crew, just like you'd expect in real life. Player tools as well. So we equip players with a variety of tools in the game, and they work just like you'd expect. You can see here in the image, there's a compass. The compass is just a compass. It points north. There's a map, a physical map that you look at that shows you the island, and there's a world map on the ship. You just use the world map. You haven't got a map with you all the time, but you use the map on the ship, just like pirates would, and they would navigate using their compasses, and it just works like real life. So you don't need to have complicated tutorials. It just works the way you'd expect. So players can just discover things naturally throughout the game. And that's something we're seeing really come to the fore in our technical alpha, where we don't need these complicated tutorials. You don't need to handhold players. It just all works naturally. Choice of play style. So in our technical alpha at the moment, our players essentially have the chance to become treasure hunters. So think of the treasure maps as a kind of light puzzle solving. And we have an example here of riddle maps where, again, that kind of feel of that Goonies adventure, that pirate riddle, that's really important here. But we've mentioned this as well on our podcasts and when we talk to our community. We're hard at work on building other play styles into Sea of Thieves that will be there for the launch of the game. So play styles that fulfill that a need for exploration or having combat on demand. We're building progression systems and quest styles around players being able to choose their play style. And players aren't locked into it. They can choose with a crew and they vote on the voyage they go in next. And players can chain these different quest types back to back and have these whole varying experiences. The crew bond in Sea of Thieves is absolutely sacred. We made a decision early on in development that you can't hurt your crew. We want you and your crew to work together. And each time you play the game, we want it to play out differently based on who you're playing with and what playstyle you're opting into. So we also have things in the game, social lubricants, shall we call them? So being able to drink grog together, play musical instruments together, a great way to break the ice when you first meet people. And it is a great way to describe it. Well, we know if we can make you laugh together, we're already kind of winning. You're already kind of way to break that ice and form those bonds together, and maybe you'll play together again. The fact that there's shared rewards, it's not that the first person to get to the treasure gets to keep it. As a crew, you work together to get that chest back. If you were the player to pick it up first, I don't mind. It's in my interest to protect you, because if we get that chest back and we open it up, we're all going to get exactly the same share. So it's in our interest to protect each other and watch out for each other's backs. This is something we're all really passionate about, and that's removing barriers. So no matter if you've played the game for hundreds of hours or you've come into the game day one, there shouldn't be barriers in place that prevent friends from playing together. You should be able to play together without having to go away and progress separately. There should be no barriers in place between players who want to make that connection. And also that comes down to platform as well. If you've got a crew of friends who want to play Sea of Thieves, you should be able to play together regardless of the device. So whether that's on Windows 10 or Xbox One, you should be able to play together. We just want to get out of the way. We don't want to put barriers in place that stop players from playing together. So as the last point, we're obviously operating our technical alpha at the moment. So we really feel like we're building this game alongside our community. So whether that's our forums or looking at the data we get back from our playtests or our questionnaires, we are balancing and perfecting our mechanics based on the feedback we receive. And most importantly, we're also prioritising what's in our roadmap next based on that feedback. I mean, Shelley will talk about some features later that we prioritise based on feedback and the way players are playing in our technical alpha. It's such a privileged position to be able to do this with real players. And everything I've talked about, it kind of goes beyond mechanics for us. As I think you're giving players a set of tools, you're giving them this pirate world. Ultimately, how they react is going to be down to them. We have our assumptions creatively about how these things are going to be used, but until we test it with real players in the wild, we really can't know for sure, because it really comes down to human psychology. It's a very hard thing to predict. And ultimately, that's the thing that's going to make our game endlessly replayable, that each session it's going to play differently based on who's in the world, who you're playing with. What we're all building up to is this goal to build a diverse community. Players with different motivations, different outlooks, different backgrounds, playing together in this pirate world, all seeking their own motivation. That is going to make our game richer. It's going to make our game more replayable. So we want to build this game for everyone. Like, if you want to come into this game and you're initially put off by multiplayer, Sea of Thieves, we want it to be the game for you. We really are passionate about Sea of Thieves potentially being someone's first multiplayer game. And that's been such an inspiration for us on the team. But of course, how are we going to achieve this? I'm going to hand over to Shelley Preston now, who's going to talk a bit more about that.
So, as Mike mentioned, we made a decision really early on in development of Sea of Thieves that the bond between the crew is sacred. And that idea, that principle, is really at the heart of all of our design decisions on Sea of Thieves. Because we believe that a crew that's going to be bonded together, they're going to be working together, cooperating together, communicating together. It's just going to create a more positive multiplayer experience for everybody in our game. So if you take the first thing that a crew will do in Sea of Thieves, and they'll learn to sail the ship together. So we've seen many crews set sail for their first adventure in Sea of Thieves, and I could honestly watch this endlessly because it's a genuine joy for us to see 4 strangers become one bonded crew as they learn to sail the ship together. It isn't just the individual cooperative nature of the mechanics of sailing the ship, it's the fact that you learn it together as a crew. the first thing that you do is figure out how to set this behemoth of a machine moving, and it feels like you've achieved something together. So you're really bonded together right from the outset. And while we believe really strongly in the magic of multiplayer, we know that there are players out there who, well, Sea of Thieves is always going to be in a shared world. Maybe they're just not comfortable with the idea of jumping straight into that four-person crew experience. So we have created a small ship that you can sail alone or with one other player. And we've designed this to be an avenue into the game for players who perhaps they love the idea of going on this pirate adventure in Sea of Thieves, but they're just not sure about jumping in with people they don't know. Or maybe you always play on a large ship with your friends, but when they're not online, you want to carry on playing, but you don't want to play with anybody else. We see it as giving players the freedom to play how they want, giving them the choice, and we don't see them as mutually exclusive. The two are very different experiences, and we love them both. And something we're really excited to do is to show some footage of the small ship, because we haven't showed this at all. So, while the large ship has been designed to be crewed by 4 people and you need to cooperate together, the small ship has been designed from the ground up to work for 1 person. It's really fast and efficient to raise the capstan, lower the sails. All of the primary controls that you need are in and around the same area. It's really been designed to work specifically for 1 person alone. You know, there's only 1 sail for you to deal with. It's not going to block your view like it does on the large ship to make you need to communicate with your crew. You can turn more nimbly as well. And you're lower down in the water. And what this means is, when it comes to encounters with other ships, because you're quite low profile, you're probably going to see a large ship before they'll see you. And it just means you've got a little bit more choice about whether you go into those encounters or not. Everything that you can do on the large ship, you can do on the small ship as well. But obviously, despite all these advantages, because you're on your own, you kind of have to deal with everything, so you are more vulnerable. So this is actually something we've seen happen in our playtests at Rare, which is small ships naturally banding together to take down a large ship. And this has happened... This has happened without prompting. And what's really cool about this is those 2 small ships, they're not a crew. And yet they're cooperating together and having a drink together afterwards. It's just another layer of which you can join in the multiplayer of Sea of Thieves. So the freedom to communicate how you want. So up until now, your only option to communicate with your crew in Sea of Thieves has been using voice communications. And we know there are many reasons why players either can't or don't want to use voice communications. Perhaps you have an accessibility issue and you physically can't use voice. Maybe you're uncomfortable with identifying yourself online by using voice. Or maybe it's situational and normally you chat away all the time, but you've got kids asleep in bed and you just want to be quiet that night. Whatever the reason is, we wanted to introduce a non-verbal communication system into Sea of Thieves to allow players the freedom to communicate how they want to. And we do hope as well that for those players who can use voice comms, maybe this will provide an avenue for them to be able to start off perhaps with non-verbal communication, find out what a positive and welcoming community there is in Sea of Thieves, and maybe eventually use verbal communications. So that's something we're going to show now as well. So how it works is players have a set of phrases that they can choose from, and then that will pop up like a text box to the rest of your crew saying that phrase. And what's really cool about this is we wanted to give players using non-verbal the ability to say everything you need to say during a typical voyage. But that's a lot of stuff, right? There's a lot of things you want to say to your crew. So we wanted it to be really slick and quick and easy for you to use so that you could use non-verbal communication in crews where other players are using verbal and you're not at a disadvantage. So what we've done is we've made it context sensitive. So if, for example, you're raising the anchor, all of the phrases that you'll see are around using the anchor. If you were on the world map, all of the phrases would be around navigation. And this just allows us to give you tons of options of things to say, but it's still fast and easy to use. Another thing that's really important to us is we didn't want it to be really dry and functional. Sea of Thieves has that silly sense of humour, and that had to be present in our non-verbal communication as well. So there are options in there that are just there for a little bit of silly fun. They're designed to make you and your crew laugh together so that players communicating using non-verbal can join in with that laugh and smile with their friends and bond together, even if they're not using verbal communication. So we've talked a lot today about how that bond between the crew is sacred, but what happens when somebody breaks that? What happens when you have a griefer or a troller on your crew? And it's really unfortunate, but it's out there, it happens. We've already seen it in our technical alpha, and it's something that we take very seriously. And we've kind of thought long and hard about how best to deal with this in Sea of Thieves, because it needed to be something that fits in our world, and it needed to work. So what we felt was that it's your crew bond. So it should be up to you to decide what behaviour is acceptable and unacceptable. And the power should be in your hands to deal with it so that you can deal with troublemakers like the ones you're going to see in this video. So everyone on the crew has a vote, and if a troublemaker receives enough votes, they're going to be locked in the ship's brig. But it's not a one-way ticket. It was really important to us that crews can reconcile and players can learn, you know. They may be... So your crew can actually vote to release you from the brig if you reconcile, let you back out onto the crew. Or they could just leave you in there and throw vomit on you. And while we feel really good about this approach, because it's so much about human behaviour, we really need to test it with real players. So we're going to be putting the brig approach into our technical alpha really soon, and we're just going to be trying it out and seeing if it does give crews the power to deal with toxic behaviour, or if there's still more work that we need to do. And I'm going to hand you over to Joe.
Thank you. Awesome. So, firstly, before I kind of get onto my topics, I just want to say it genuinely makes me proud to work with people like Shelley, with like Mike and like Pete, but genuinely people with the passion and the smarts to talk so coherently about kind of the vision for Sea of Thieves and what we're trying to do and everything else. It genuinely makes me super proud that we've worked on this project since the start, and just to stand here and watch you guys, like I was like getting a little tear on. But please give them a round of applause because they are incredibly smart people. But genuinely, like we believe so strongly in this project and the vision and the opportunity that we have, and it's so cool to hear just colleagues talk like they do. So, alongside the game design choices that Shelley and Mike have talked so eloquently about, it's really important to us that we strategically we wanted to ensure that we had a welcoming, positive community for Sea of Thieves, right? Because when we get to that launch period for the game, having this welcoming, positive community that's going to be friendly, it's going to be helping new players, all that kind of stuff, it's super important. And it's a new IP, it's something that we needed to build. So, since December last year, in fact, we've been running our Insider program, which is has been very much embracing kind of open, transparent development. So, we send out weekly updates to people. We write Insider reports for the forum, and I've still got to write this month, and I'm late, I'm sorry. And the videos that we release talking about the game features and the thinking behind it, and the reason we come to kind of like Comic-Con and places like this is to talk about our thinking and our plans. And we engage in Reddit, we engage where people are. Like Mike talked about, we listen to feedback. We're very much kind of making design decisions based on on what players are telling us in our alpha because we're creating this social kind of sandbox multiplayer game where we're really dependent on how players behave with the features we give them. But what all this does, and it's been a purposeful choice, is it builds trust and respect. And I'm really glad I could get a Barack Obama picture in a slide. But genuinely, like, it builds trust and respect because we're open and transparent, because we're talking about the decisions that we're making, explaining why, even if players maybe don't agree with all the decisions we make. It builds that trust and respect between each other, and we listen. Well, like, it's a super important part of our strategy for this game, and hopefully that's what we're doing. So. Another really important thing for us is something we've talked about quite a lot with our community, is a pirate's code for Sea of Thieves, about how we expect, and not just us, but our community expects players to behave in Sea of Thieves. So this is something that we actually consulted our community about. We kind of posted on our forums and asked for people like, what do you expect in a multiplayer game? What do you expect in Sea of Thieves in terms of player behavior? And so we've created our kind of 7-step pirate code, which we posted in the forums a couple of days ago, asking for feedback on what we think is the right kind of set of codes and behaviors for players to kind of abide by. But we're going to have this in the game. We're going to have this kind of on the loading screen. We're going to be like holding people to account in terms of how they should behave in Sea of Thieves, because a multiplayer experience, it should be for everyone, and kind of toxic behavior and negative behavior is unacceptable, and we will not abide by that in Sea of Thieves. So yeah. So yeah, this is the first point, right? The sea equals to all. Like, everyone is welcome in Sea of Thieves. There is no space for discrimination for any reason. And anybody that behaves like this, they will not be allowed to play Sea of Thieves for much longer, right? It's like, genuinely, we will be kind of using all of the tools at our disposal to ensure as much as we can that this is a game for everybody. So, like, there's something, like Mike talked about, the magic of multiplayer. We believe so strongly in the potential for multiplayer. And by creating a game that isn't just about competition, it's more of a social playbox for people to come and role play as pirates. We believe that there's such an opportunity there to bring multiplayer to such a wider audience, to people that have maybe been put off before. And the sea unites us as one community. You don't have to drink, but like it's okay if you want. But like, community behavior is super important. Whether it's in your crew, the people you meet or that you chat to on the forums and the Reddit, we are one community. And again, you should be respecting everybody else in there, respecting their opinions, respecting their voice, giving everybody a chance to kind of talk and have their opinions heard. And ultimately, yeah, like, if you have disputes, settle them up on the waves, right? We've got this amazing social pirate sandbox where you can actually go and kind of and settle them. But everything should be done in game, right? Use the game to settle scores, to settle your discussions. It's not about abusive behavior and communication and stuff. And all crewmates are equal. So again, everyone should have a voice. Like Mike talked about earlier, players will vote on their voyages. So everybody's going to be able to get a chance to put down their kind of quest that they want to go and achieve. But ultimately, it's the crew, that crew bond. You guys are going to be deciding what it is that you want to go and achieve. But everyone is equal, right? People vote on the voyages. They vote on sending people to the brig. It's a democracy, ultimately. And yeah, you've probably heard this phrase quite a lot before, but the crew bond is sacred, right? And those that betray their crew and and ship through griefing, they will be sent to the brig. I think that's a really important thing for us. Like, whether you've played 1,000 hours or you're new to the game, you should be able to play together. Again, Mike talked about this, about breaking down boundaries. And so Sea of Thieves, we implore everybody that plays this to support your fellow players. Like, if you're experienced and you've played a lot and a new player comes and join, help them, guide them, like, teach them how to use the ship, teach them how to kind of do quests. But like, this should be a positive, welcoming environment. And it's all about the players. The players that are in there are so critical for us. And so, yeah, respect everybody that you play with. And then ultimately, those that cheat shall be punished, right? Don't be a shit, basically, is the summary for that. But like honestly, because like we will, we have a customer service team. We'll be like looking at trying to get reports out of that, and just don't be a shit in Sea of Thieves. Basically, that's the summary. We couldn't get that as the name of the talk, unfortunately, but. So our pirate code. So we've posted this in our community. We're seeking feedback. So we might adjust, we might alter, but those are the articles. Those are the things that are so there's something that we believe in so strongly as a team and as a game, right? So I'm going to be kind of wrapping up fairly soon, and then we'll get into some questions and ultimately some feedback around kind of the talk. But I just want to kind of encapsulate what the vision is for Sea of Thieves, what's so important to us. And firstly, it's a safe space where players role play as pirates, but they respect each other, right? You come into the game, sure, live out those pirate fantasies, but respect the people that you're playing in this multiplayer game with, because it will be a better game for everyone if you respect the other players in a multiplayer environment. That we have the multiplayer game with a positive, welcoming community. And so this is actually a photo of a bunch of our insiders that actually managed to visit Rare a few weeks ago, actually, after EGX. Super cool for us to be able to meet and chat with people who are in our community and vice versa. Really inspiring for us as much as the people that visited. But, this is our goal, and we're going to do everything in our power to kind of maintain this. However big and successful Sea of Thieves gets, and it obviously will. Sorry. Hashtag not humble, but genuinely, obviously, we believe in the opportunity of this game. But we will always be doing everything. However many people come into this game, this is what we're going to be doing and preaching, and how we behave and how our community behave. We think it's super important. And this is what we want to create, right? The most fun and welcoming multiplayer experience ever. So, like Mike said, if you've not played multiplayer games before, come in, jump in, give it a try. We genuinely believe we've got something so special. So I think that is us. So we would love questions and or feedback. And so I think there are microphones around the room, and I think Pete is going to, So, so either questions about the game or questions about what you've heard today or feedback, because we'd love to hear your thoughts on this stuff, so.
Okay, then cool. We'll take the first one.
Basically, so soon is the time frame for small ships and for the little jail.
Soon is the time frame.
Yeah, soon is indeed the time frame. Yeah, so we have. They're ready, and we wanted to show them here first before then putting them into the alpha with real players. So it's something we're going to be testing with our kind of pioneer groups to begin with, and then it will go into the wider kind of group of players. But soon, yeah.
The sale is on the horizon of the store.
Indeed.
Very good.
Just about make it out.
Yeah.
All right, well, since I can't really think of anything else on the spot, I'm just going to do a quick shout out for anyone here who hasn't played the alpha yet, you haven't joined the insider thing, just join it. Free, simple, easy to do. Get into this alpha. It's amazing. I've been doing it since March, and I'm in love with it.
You should have done the panel, dude. You were better than me.
I would have loved to.
Do you want to come up here?
The forums too, legit, the forums are not nearly as toxic as some other forums that there are. People will help you out. So if you have questions, you actually can get answers and responses. So I really encourage you all, sign up for the Insider Program, join the forums, be active, because this game is phenomenal.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. Thank you.
Hello.
I've got your
my name
payment
is,
at the end.
Matt. I'll be honest. I love PvP. I love being toxic. It's actually how I met a lot of my friends. A lot of them. I'm not kidding. A lot of them. But you talk on how you want the game to have a nice community, but will PvP be in the game?
Well, PvP is in the game
It
today.
is in the game?
Absolutely. Well, it kind of feeds into how we've designed the quests. I mean, we've shown off one type of quest extensively, which is the one that leads to buried treasure, which we had to do first because it's the ultimate pirate trope.
Yeah.
But the design around that was to make the chest a deferred reward. Mm-hmm. So when you dig up that chest, you can pick it up like a physical object in the world, but the important thing to note is that it's not really yours yet. Okay. You are just picking it up, putting it on the ship, hiding it where you like. You're just relaying it in the world. Okay. It only becomes yours when the chest gets opened back at an outpost. Okay. So that's the way we'll design our quest, because we want that deferred reward to lead to that classic pirate PvP scenario you can imagine, where you board someone's ship and they've got tons of chests on board, and you just go, oh, that looks like the most valuable one, I'll take that one.
Okay.
But the important thing is, once you open that chest, the gold is then safe. So you know what's at stake as a player. So the goal has been to get that nice balance of, you get to live out your pirate PvP fantasies, but once the gold is safe, it's safe. You get to take that away from the session. Okay. So we feel we've struck a right balance there.
Okay, and also a follow-up question. So you talk about mini ships here now, but say if a person's alone, okay? I love bullying in video games more than the next guy, I'll be honest here. So, like, say if I get a group of 4 friends, okay, all experienced players, could we say attack less experienced players? Like, is it like an open world? Is it like an area where high experienced players go?
Nope.
So I can just bully as many people as I want?
But remember that you absolutely
You're going to
can.
spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
But right from the start, we've made decisions to make that work, and that comes down to the size of the world, the level design of that world,
So like
where
a
players
small
start.
area.
Well, where players start that adventure, and also the fact that there is no fast travel in Sea of Thieves. You can't.
That's good.
You can't teleport ships around the world. If you see a sail on the horizon, that ship physically has to sail over to you. So you can imagine the scenario where you are on that small ship. You as a player, it's such an incredible experience where you are constantly scanning the horizon, paranoid that a ship's going to come over the horizon. But when you do see it, you've got complete control to angle the sail into the wind and head in another direction.
Okay. Well, thank you for answering my question.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi, hey, I'm Matt. I know one thing that a lot of multiplayer games have been dealing with recently is microtransactions when customizing. And I just want to get this right off the bat. Is there going to be any microtransactions? And will there be any way to customize characters if there won't be?
Okay. So we're not quite in a position to talk about our business stuff at the moment. But when it comes to the like, that's something that I think we'll talk to in a little while. We have plans that we're happy with and that we think are fair to kind of players in terms of how we deliver this experience to people. But in terms of like the character customization and stuff, like when you're playing the game and you're completing quests and maybe you're being like the guy that was on before and you're going around sinking other ships and stealing stuff off other people, that will be kind of reflected in the kind of things that you can wear, that you can kind of dress your character in, and the titles that you can earn. So all of those things are very much like, we want players to become the legend that they kind of want to be, and that reflects how they play and give that freedom to players. So yeah, very much how you show up in the world will be reflective of kind of how you've behaved and the things that you've earned and things you've done. So yeah, we have some super cool kind of plans around the progression side of things.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm sure if anyone is in the technical alpha, you might have noticed the chests on the middle deck. There's a little loadout area where there's multiple chests. So even customizing your character, we want to make it as social as possible. So rather than just pressing start and burying yourself in a menu, you'll physically go to the pirate dress-up box. And if you want to decide on that day, hey guys, let's all dress in red, you can all go there together and pick out your outfits.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Thanks.
Hi, I had a question about the brig mechanic. Because I get how it deals with, you have a team of players actually trying to play versus the troll. What happens when you have the inverse? Maybe you have like a team of trolls who they have one extra player who maybe it's their friend they don't really like or something like that, and they just lock them in the brig for no reason. Is there a way to deal with that, like you plan on mechanically, or based on your philosophy, does the team like, okay, that's the democracy of that crew, let them do whatever they want?
So it is something that we thought about, and it's actually something we looked into data from our technical alpha. Because as I mentioned, we have seen it already, like trolling and griefing. But when we looked into the situations that have been happening, it does tend to be that single kind of person. And we know that the approach isn't going to fix every possible scenario, but we kind of wanted to start somewhere and start with a solution that we feel is going to fix the kind of primary case that we've got, which is that lone kind of griefer. I think if you're in a situation where you have 3 griefers on your crew, you're probably going to want to leave that crew anyway.
And like Shelley said in her talk, we're going to be testing this. And this is what since December we've been testing. We started with 1,000 players. We're now over 100,000 that are playing like Sea of Thieves at home. We can test this for real, and it's kind of, you're managing social behaviour. So you have a design and you put it out there and you see, does it actually work as we expected, or do we need to take a further step? Because otherwise we'd just sit spinning forever and ever trying to kind of come up with every edge case and every kind of possible human behaviour that might happen. So I think we're just going to put it in the alpha and test it, right? So I think it's going to be exciting to see what we learn.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello. My name's Armando. Yeah, and follow up on his question with the Brig, actually. Other games have done something similar, particularly Left 4 Dead 2, where you can kind of do a group vote. The voting process itself actually became a griefing method where people would spam the vote process at key moments to distract other players and eventually just kind of all die in glorious, awful fashion. Do you guys have any plan to try to combat that actual vote initiation to try to be itself a trolling method?
So I'm not familiar with the Left 4 Dead 2 mechanic. But our voting mechanic, it isn't like a timed thing that you kick off. It's just at any point, if you can kind of set your vote against that player to be that you want to lock them in the brig. And then if enough players set their vote, as soon as it reaches enough players, they'll get locked into the brig. So there isn't kind of a timed mechanic. I don't know if that really answers your question.
I'm sorry, an on-screen prompt? Because in Left 4 Dead, it'd be a kind of noticeable prompt when you have giant zombies in front of you, and it's time to kind of block your view.
Right.
Or
So we don't have that. We're kind of hoping that the crew will be able to communicate naturally using communication about the vote, and that we hope that kind of if somebody is trolling or griefing, everybody's kind of going to notice that. We didn't want to make it too, like you say, almost a mechanic in itself that alerts everybody that it's happening.
Okay, thank you. And also, real quick, in regards to the smaller ships, how do you see the power balance? So 4 people on a big ship versus maybe 4 individual players on a small ship. The big ship itself isn't a liability. Is it 2 ships are equivalent to 1 big ship in general ideas, or?
Honestly, it depends on the people who are on the ship. You could have a really amazing, skilled person on a small ship, not me. I was going to say me, but I can't pull that off. Who's using the abilities that the small ship has, that using the nimbleness of the turning, and you could have a crew. Honestly, you could have a crew of 4 people on a large ship, but if they're not working together, if they're not communicating together, that one person's going to kind of outdo them every single time. So really, it just depends on the players, with everything in Sea of Thieves.
I think we've struck a really nice balance with. You think of that large ship, it's got 3 sails that need to get angled into the wind. It moves slower in the water. Mm-hmm. Well, that small ship has got, it sits higher in the water, it's pretty nimble. Large ship obsessed that by the fact that it's got more firepower. But that firepower and maintaining that ship's speed requires 4 players working together as a well-oiled machine. So it works really well. And you often see small ships just running rings around the large ship. And we're in a world where I think large ships will think twice about going to attack a small ship because they know how much more flexibility that small ship has in operating it in the water. Apparently, I made a Celine Dion reference there.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, even for the reference.
Thank you. Thank you. Next question.
Okay, so I have just a general question. How exactly does ship ownership work? So does everyone just start out hey, you have a big ship and a small ship, have fun?
Yeah, I mean, it was important that we get players out there having adventures on the large ship to begin with. We didn't want to kind of say, well, you've got to start on the small ship, you've got to earn your way up to the large ship. Although that kind of makes sense in terms of a player journey, it would really limit, and again, a barrier we'd put in place between friends playing together. In terms of I guess the ship is owned by the crew, but there's definitely things we're looking at for the future in terms of ship ownership to really, ships becoming a personification of what an individual has done in the world is something that we are looking at.
Yeah, I think initially it's about your personal kind of pirate legend as a player, right?
Yeah, so I mean, as I kind of said in the first slide, players who come into Sea of Thieves start that journey to become a pirate legend. So you, on that personal journey, customizing your character, building your reputation across these play styles, but then that naturally then builds into you and your ship. So they're definitely exciting plans of where we want to take the game next.
All right, and just as a follow-up, because you just said your ship, so how exactly would ship customization and progression work?
All I will say is that we've got very exciting plans around that area, but we'll save that for another Comic-Con panel.
Okay, I'll make sure to go.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Cheers, dude. Yeah.
All right, first of all, I'd like to say that your game looks amazing, and I am a big fan of those kind of games, that genre. But so this is why I'm a bit critical about it. So there are games out there like Elite Dangerous, and some of us were unfortunate to play No Man's Sky.
No comment.
My question is, what is the priority that you guys have on context? Because that is what's going to keep us playing your game.
How do you mean on context? Sorry.
Well, you go in, you grab some loot, you go back to your ship, you have a few beers, and you rinse and repeat. What other things can you provide for us?
Talking about progression
Yeah, I mean,
again, right?
it relates to
In-game.
progression, relates to quest design as well, and the different play styles that I've talked about. So I guess kind of the context of your question is that, is it more than just the
Sorry,
core...
like content.
Yeah,
Did I
sorry,
say
I just mean like
context? Did I say context?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, content.
the core loop that you've seen so far, and the fact that there's an element of that sandbox experience where crews get to make their own fun, but ultimately there will be a progression system where players are not only customizing their character, they're also unlocking richer and more rewarding experiences. So what players are seeing now in the technical alpha is more kind of like a base level. There's no kind of progression there around that play style. Even the play style that players have seen, the treasure hunting and the other play styles we're working on, they will progress. So as an individual on your path to become a pirate legend, the types of voyages you will go on will become harder, more challenging. You'll see more mechanics. You'll get richer rewards. And that's something that you share with the crew. So when you come to the crew, players essentially put their cards on the table. They put their voyages on the table and they vote on what they're going to go do as a democracy. Right, we're going to go do this today, and then we'll do your voyage next, and then my voyage.
So in other words, if I were to play more than my friends and I were to get more experience and get much bigger events, they would be able to share that with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
You would,
And they won't be handicapped, though. They won't be able to. They'll be able to keep up with everything.
absolutely. There may be a case where you need to give them some pointers and shepherd them a bit. But the cool thing to stress there as well, and this is obviously something we're really passionate about, is in that situation where you bring a really rewarding voyage to the crew and they vote on it and it becomes the one you go after, you will feel incredible as that individual with that experience that you have. You've brought that and you've shared it with the crew. And for them, they'll love you for it. They'll probably spam you with friends requests because they want you to hook them up with all the best voyages in the game. Yeah. And not only will they want to play with you, they want to be you.
Yeah.
And that's a really powerful thing in our game. They're going to want to be you and have those on demand as well. And that will strengthen their progression. So it's a really exciting area that we're kind of really keen to...
Yeah,
we use
the phrase about breaking down barriers a lot, right? And and there's we could have made any number of decisions to put barriers in place to stop people playing together with around progression or whatever else, but we always wanted to make sure that regardless of if you've been playing for 500 hours and then I'm fresh to the game and I'm your friend and you've been talking about it and getting me excited, I should be able to come and play with you, and there shouldn't be a barrier in place for that.
Right. Now, you speak about barriers, though. Does that mean that the loot that you get is just going to be cosmetic? Because if you do get anything in those loot crates that are maybe a stronger sword, then you do have progression, and then you do have an advantage.
So that is something that we're being really careful around. The idea of vertical progression, because that in itself is putting a barrier in place. The idea that the scenarios where you interact with other crews in the world are purely a result of who's got the highest level gear. That is not Sea of Thieves. That is putting a barrier in place because it's a one-dimensional interaction. It's like, well, I've got no chance against them. Where we want players to always be on their guard. That if they come across a ship and it's like, well, this crew, they seem like they're new to the game, they could be deceiving you. They could be using a title. They could be purposely dressing like castaways, dressed in rags, because they're deceiving you. They're pretending to be somebody else. And that deception is a really powerful thing, I think, and it's so befitting the pirate experience, rather than it just being this linear aspiration of I just constantly get better and it's just one-dimensional. Yeah. So we're trying to build a richer experience around the progression.
And that you earn the ability to go on kind of more interesting and varied voyages, right? That's almost that you have more interesting adventures is kind of how you progress and what you earn. That's kind of where our design thinking is going, right?
Yeah.
So
thank you so much for answering my question.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Great questions.
Great questions.
I'll be leaving you my email so you can send me an alpha code.
Fantastic.
Don't tell everyone.
Hello, guys.
Hi.
So I have played the technical alpha and I loved it. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Awesome.
I just have a question. I have a question when it comes to weather effects.
Okay.
So, I was a PvP player, me and my crew, and we would often hunt people. So,
Nice
so
choice.
I realized while hunting a ship through a storm that the lightning would actually hit the ship. It would hit me off the wheel,
Yep.
and I would take damage.
Yep.
But I always wondered, I was like, wait, there's no fire here. So I was like, so what are you guys going to do as in terms of what kind of damage can be done to the ship? Like, the only thing I've seen so far is if it rains, you have to like kind of take water out from the bottom of the ship. Will that be all?
So there is the hull does kind of get strained and take damage in the storm as
This
well.
has recently been added, hasn't it?
It is very
Recently.
recent. So if you're in a storm now, you will actually have damage you'll need to repair, as well as extra water that you'll need to bail out.
Okay.
Yeah. And if you hit rocks and islands and on other ships and stuff, you'll take damage on hulls. You've seen that, right? Yeah. Or have you never hit another island or rock? If so, skills. Like,
Yeah, that's perfection.
One more question.
Yeah.
Are there going to be anything else besides day, night, and storms added to the game? Like snow or
In terms of like environmental
yes,
stuff.
environmental things.
Good question, isn't it?
I think like it's important that what we
I don't know the
what
answer.
we add to the, well, sorry, I've snuck a secret feature in, Joe. No, I think it's important on what we add to the game fits the Sea of Thieves world. I think we'll definitely explore in that area. We won't just leave it to that, but we'll make sure it kind of fits this pirate world. I think it'd be quite odd if you saw a snowstorm in that world.
But it's a fantastical world, so there will definitely be other danger from the world in a fantastical world.
I guess I watched too much One Piece. But,
Yeah.
but thank you. That's all my questions.
Awesome.
Thank
Cheers,
you.
dude.
So we're just running out of time here, so I'll just get everybody just to ask one question if we can, just to try and see if we can get through everybody. Okay. Thank you.
Is there going to be any kind of crew finder, or is it just kind of whoever you see or whoever you already know is who you go with?
Well, I guess even in the technical alpha now, you can choose to play with friends. So you can add friends to the crew, but you can also use random matchmaking. So we put crews together in a really slick and easy way. We've also got the LFG feature on Xbox, which is really popular. And I think we were so pleased when we saw that feature get announced, because it's almost like it's been tailor-made for Sea of Thieves. And we toyed a lot of time, like a few years ago, thinking we need to build a feature that is exactly the same functionality what LFG has made.
Looking for group.
Looking for group, yeah. Sorry, I use my acronyms. So I think that's a great way for like-minded crew members to come together. And it speaks to the point that the gentleman asked earlier around making connections in the game. We're really designing features around, building those friend relationships in the game. So if you were to just come across someone in matchmaking who's got those better voyages than you, that's a great kind of incentive to get to know them, because they can kind of hook you up with these kind of more rewarding voyages. And also the decision points around meeting players on the Ferry of the Damned. You could meet players on there, hit it off in a conversation, then add friends. I think that's really our focus.
It's always been an aspiration for us right from the start that Sea of Thieves is great with friends, but you don't have to have them before you play Sea of Thieves. And it's something we've actually seen come into fruition in the technical alpha that's been amazing for us, is that people have actually genuinely made friends through Sea of Thieves and then gone on to players' crews. They've built crews from the random matchmaking. And that's really awesome for us to see.
Yeah, we purposefully didn't. I guess the easiest thing for us to do and for us to get better fun ratings and everything else from our alpha surveys would be to allow everyone to bring their friends in with them to the alpha. But we purposely didn't allow that so that we knew strangers would be playing with kind of strangers, and we'd see, can we actually build bonds with strangers and everything. Like that's always been our goal for kind of Sea of Thieves, to, like you say, like you play with friends or you make friends in the game and kind of build those bonds.
So the progression is, the matchmaking is completely randomized. It's not based on your progression.
That's correct. Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that's a deliberate choice as well. We didn't want to start, because that in a way is kind of segmenting players, saying, well, you can only play with this other person.
And you know how we feel about barriers?
Well, pretty strongly, I'll have you know. No, but I think that would be us getting in the way of some great potential friendships that could be made in the game by saying you can only play with people who have achieved the same level as you. Where some of the best friendships you'll make will be playing with people who are at completely different points in their journey. And I think that's it's pretty ambitious as a vision, but we feel we're on track at least, I think.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Great question.
Hi, how's it going?
Hey.
I'm really a fan of your multiplayer vision. I think it's going to be really good. So, are there sea monsters that can capsize ships? Because I think that'd be really awesome.
Have you seen some of our previous trailers?
I have not.
We're pretty bad with it, really. We've been dropping hints now for like 2 years, I think, in our trailer. Yeah, I mean, if you think of the mythical creatures that are out there in like pirate lore, pirate fiction, we've got to do something to live up with that. So, yeah, watch this space.
So yes is the simple answer.
I can't just give a yes or no answer. I have to labour the point. I'm sorry.
Good.
Heard it from Joe.
Definitely have me sold. So. Very cool. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Hey.
Hi, so you already have the game on PC and Xbox. Do you think that you would ever be interested in developing for PS4 or Nintendo Switch?
Like we are an Xbox first-party studio, so our responsibility is to develop for Xbox and Windows 10 and kind of cross-play and the magic that entails. So I think that's our focus, right? And not like that would be a decision way above my pay grade in terms of if like that would be an Xbox strategy decision. So so that's our kind of focus. So.
Is that a little bit disappointing for you, or?
Yeah.
We're all big gamers, though. We're all fans.
Oh, absolutely,
of all
yeah.
those platforms. So yeah.
Thank you.
No
Thank
worries,
you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Hi. I was interested in the weapon variety for the game. Like if there would be like light weapons and like maybe heavy weapons, or like maybe like dual wield like knives for like later in the game.
Yeah, I mean, so far in our technical alpha, we've showed off cutlasses, flintlock pistols, and blunderbuss. And the idea is that each of those weapon archetypes, if you will, kind of conform to different classes. So you've got obviously cutlasses, which is deliberately a short range melee weapon. There's flintlock pistols, which are kind of mid range, and then you've got blunderbuss, which are super close range. And the idea there was always to get that kind of classic pirate scenario of someone boarding someone's ship, like firing off a blunderbuss and then switching seamlessly to their cutlass. And all I'll say is that, like, look at pirate movies. There's probably some weapons we're not yet serving, and we'll definitely be looking at those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So like I enjoy the game so far, but like I haven't downloaded it yet. I think it's really good for multiplayer people, and I was wondering like how good is the variety of weapons to choose from? Like, is there any powerful, any like weak sort of type weapons like that deal less damage than others?
Yeah,
I love that you're asking that question, brandishing a kunai. It's like really
I missed that. I didn't see that. Very nice. Very nice. I think like a focus on the design team has always been the right tool for the job. So rather than us deliberately going to design and create these kind of weak powered weapons, it was always the fact that that might be the trait of a weapon, that it's generally lower firepowered, but it's got the benefit elsewhere. And that in a certain situation, there's an incentive to use that weapon. So earlier on, I talked about the loadout area on the ship, and that will be the area where players will be choosing the weapons they want to take, and they can change that on the ship at any point. So choosing the right weapons for the job has really been our focus. So as a crew, you can go, right, you take this, I'll take that. That's kind of the way we're approaching it. So there'll be a range of weapons, but they're not like they're going to be from really rubbish on this end to awesome on this end. They'll be, in certain situations, they'll all have their part to play.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Cheers.
So we've only got a couple of minutes left. We'll take one more question, and for anybody who's left behind, we'll answer your questions outside because I think we're probably going to get thrown out pretty soon, or put in the brig. I don't know.
Everyone, the first point I saw this game was really intrigued, and one thing I thought of right away is, will there be any, or is there at least a vision for any NPC style enemies that a crew and maybe possibly another crew could face together? Possibly as sea monsters too, also. Ooh. But just in any terms, like an NPC, like boss or something.
That sounds like an excellent idea. Maybe.
So yeah.
So I think. Whoa! Don't interrupt yet. I'm just kidding. I think that kind of idea, mechanics in the world that can bring crews together in cooperation, definitely plans in that area. And I think like playing a big fan of like public events in Destiny. Obviously, we'd want to do it in a Sea of Thieves way. It feels really natural, feels really organic, completely seamless. So we'll be looking at just things that naturally bring ships of players together in the world. So yes.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Right, let's see if we can sneak. Let's see if we can. I'm going to say, let's see if we can sneak another couple of questions in.
All right. First of all, I need one of those shirts as soon as possible because those shirts are awesome and I need one. But I was you should have brought.
You want
a
me to
couple
take this
more.
off?
Yes. Yeah. Do it. So. Yeah. Right.
Please don't do that. This is taking a strange turn.
So me and my friends were talking about this game when we first saw it. We thought, damn, this game is dope. It's amazing. We're gonna get to do like a Red Dead type of style, go together, plunder, and get some loot and stuff like that. And then I just heard today it's only 4 players, and I was like, oh. So is there anything in the future maybe where you think of doing like an 8-player, bigger ship? So we can like because I have a bunch of friends that we play a lot of games together. And we like the bigger formats, the bigger co-op.
Yeah, I mean
like
we say 4 players. That's what it currently is in technical alpha.
Right.
That's definitely one of the areas that we're really keen on getting feedback on, and we're kind of watching that really intently and seeing what do players expect, what do they want from that large ship in terms of crew size. I think when we set out to design the game, we deliberately went. It was always kind of on the smaller side, so you'd never see kind of crews of 15, 20 people because I think when you get beyond a certain number, it just becomes a rabble. It doesn't really feel like you're working together anymore, and people will naturally kind of split off into separate groups. So we'll look to finalise that number soon, but like feedback like that, I totally understand it, and it's something we'll be looking at.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
I actually had a question. I had a question about the physics for the boats. For most games, that have one boat, usually you have to run along with the boat wherever it's going. And I also have another question. Could we make, later in the game development, could we make custom NPCs, weapons, and maps? Like custom ships?
Do you want to take the physics question, Shelley? Just how we've.
I'm not quite sure what the question was.
Well,
Sorry.
Just the design of
the design of the
physics and
design of the
ship and
physics
stuff.
of the ship and how much time we put.
So we spent a lot of time getting the physics of the ship to feel right. It's actually something we developed in Unity first, which is a different game engine to what Sea of Thieves is in now, which is in Unreal. And it's actually something that we just spent a lot of time getting the feeling of it right, so that it felt like a real ship, and it kind of felt exactly how you expected it to feel. And then when we developed it in Unreal, it was actually one of the things that took the longest time to get right, going from one engine to the other. But we're really happy with where it ended up.
Oh yes, the second question was around what was the second?
Custom weapons, NPCs, and boats.
Yeah, well, I think weapons, like players having unique weapons, absolutely. Definitely with boats longer term. We get questions around, will Sea of Thieves have a crafting system? Those kinds of questions. And I think one thing we've never tried to do is just take mechanics, like carbon copy from other experiences. We've always tried to pick what's right for Sea of Thieves, and when we do, put our own unique spin on it. And I mean, a great example of that is when players die, they go to the ghost ship, and it's like a social hub for dead people. And we could have easily gone, well, someone's dead, we'll just put a timer in. But that's an example of us taking a mechanic, grounding it in the Sea of Thieves world, and putting our own kind of spin and creativity on it. So I think, I totally get the question in terms of it'd be really cool to kind of have your weapons personalised to you. But I think if we do that, we'll put a proper Sea of Thieves spin on it that fits the pirate world.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have our final question for the day.
This could be real quick. How big is the brig? Because I really want to play a survivor simulator.
It's uncomfortably small.
Deliberately
We
so.
deliberately made it so that you felt the confinement in there. And, you know, if two people get locked in there, it's definitely a bit socially awkward and uncomfortable.
How does it work? Can you put a third person in there too? I mean, what happens if, because...
Two at the moment, because you need a majority from your crew to get them in there.
Got it. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And thanks very much to everybody for attending. It's been a real pleasure to be here. So, safe journey home, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
See you, Thieves.
Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed what you just saw, then please like and subscribe to our channel and check out some more of our weekly videos. And if you're interested in the game's development, then click the link down here and join our Insider program for a chance to play the game early. Don't worry, I'll just wait here.